We're going to skip now a couple of kinnas. We'll go to kinna. Some kinnas it's Vaikonim Yomiyal Yoshio. Some kinnas it's called Eicha Eli Koinim Me'elav. The famous kinna about Yoshio, and I've spoken in the past here about Yoshio's greatness. I'm assuming you remember it from the past. The words in Divrei Hayamim, the pasuk says these words, which again some of the kinna start with Vaikonim Yirmiyal Yoshio. The Chazal tell us what is that kinna, where is that written? The fourth parak of Eicha Yuam Zahav is the fourth parak, was the kinna that Yirmiyahu composed over the death of Yoshio. And Yoshio led that first real tshuva movement. He began to undo many of the evils of his father Ammon and his grandfather Menashe, who really started the spiral down to the end of the Bayis Rishon, really started a chain of events that was not reversed, although Yoshio tried very, very, very hard. There are three reasons why Yirmiyahu's kinna about him became incorporated into Tanakh, and why specifically on Tisha B'Av of all the tragedies is something that we highlight. First of all, the Gemara in Sanhedrin tells us that whoever saves one life it's equivalent of saving the entire world. So the focus of the individual here, which we'll come back to later on, is it's important to focus on what happens to individual. It's not just about what happens to the tzibur, but if there's one person suffering, there's one person that has a bad experience, it's important that we recognize that as well. The second answer is that Yoshio was not just some ordinary individual, but he was a leader and a teacher, just like Moshe Rabbeinu. And even in the Kinnah, when they say the words like "Kam Kamay Mimois Avigdor," Avigdor is another name for Moshe Rabbeinu, and Moshe, the Medrash says, was equal to Chai Yisrael. So if Yoshio was like Moshe, he wasn't just another individual that happened to die before the Churban, but he also was. It was like losing our leader, losing our guide. And finally, Yoshio's death really was the beginning of the Churban. We learned in the Gemara in Yumin Daf Yomi, we learned that Yoshio hid the Kalim of the Beis Hamikdash. Already during his lifetime, you could sense the difference. Yeah, you had a building that existed, but spiritually, it was already an empty building. And so that's really what we're mourning, that with the loss of Yoshio was already the beginning of the loss of the Churban, similar to why we fast on Asar B'Teves, being the beginning of the Churban as well. So the words are pretty easy if you pay attention. 8 years old, he started to search for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. B'nei Cham, the children of Cham, which was Mitzrayim, Ba'avram, Chanu Alav, they passed through, and Klai Yisrael was encamped there. And his good deeds, he has chusim, did not help him. That there were kings who tried to mend the breach of Avodah Zarah. No one was as successful as he was since the days of Avigdor. However, he thought that he succeeded and Avodah Zarah was eradicated. But what happened was Dovid by Avoin Leitzani Adar struck him. Asher Achar Adelas Kamalizdar, they hid the Avodah Zarah behind the door when the inspectors would come in, and the door would open and split. The Avodah Zarah was hidden behind the door, and they didn't find it. Further down, Zakla Marv Kinam Das Lahakim, Yoshio promised to uphold Das, the laws of the Torah, and Bitza Imrase Bara Shela Yakim, when he heard, there was a famous story about they were doing repairs, they found a Torah, it was open to the curses of Ara Shela Yakim, and as a result, he took it as a sign that Klai Yisrael needed to do tshuva, and he started and he ripped his clothing and he started that movement. Tayvim Reim the Crow, Kishalchu Malach, this ally Mitzrayim. Now, if you learn the history, Ashur is a superpower, Mitzrayim is a superpower. They don't like each other, and so when Ashur is starting to expand, Bavel ends up taking over for Ashur, and Bavel goes to fight with Mitzrayim. But Mitzrayim is right between Ashur, which is to the northeast, and Mitzrayim, which is to the southwest. And so to get to fight Ashur, Mitzrayim had to pass through Eretz Yisrael. And there were actually, I saw recently in one of the archaeological books, they found remnants. They believe there were multiple battles that Yoshio had with Paranechoi. But the idea was that Yoshio did not want to let Mitzrayim pass through, because there was a promise that Hashem gave that even one nation fighting another nation would not be allowed to pass through Eretz Yisrael. And so he believed that Klai Yisrael was holding by that level. So they wanted to go fight around Narayim. He didn't want to let them. He felt that the sword should not pass through, even Mitzrayim, to go and fight and to go and fight Ashur. But he didn't listen to the Navi. Yoshio told them, they're not holding where you think they are. They're not there. You got to let him go through. And Yoshio didn't listen. It was a decree. There was a nevu in Yeshaya. Mitzrayim would collapse from infighting. Right? Because they worshipped Avodah Zarah behind the doors. And the Chazan and Tzoisi, the Navi from Anosis, which is Yirmiyahu, they scorned him. Many stories in Sefer Yirmiyahu about how they hit him, they threw him in jail, they disregarded him. So they go to battle, and Pare tells his soldiers, just shoot arrows at Yoshio. Once he's dead, we'll be able to go through. So then his eyes were already closing, and they continued to pound his body, arrow after arrow. So do with Samu Katamatar Lachitzim, they made him like target practice. They shot him with probably an exaggeration, 300 arrows, but the idea was that the entire archer's aim was completely at him. So Yirmiyahu runs over to see, is he now going to regret and he's going to be upset at all the work that he did? Is he going to be angry at HaKadosh Baruch Hu? So Kalim Tzatsu Acharav, the swift one, which is Yirmiyahu, runs after him, Ezon Moitzafihu, to hear his last words. He testifies over here that at the end of his life, his maisim were beautiful, with his last gasp. He mumbles out, and that is the Tziddik Hadin. The Kinner goes on to talk about how there were 22 more years left as a schus for the 22 letters of the Aleph base that Yoshio kept of the Torah. But the idea was that with this was our last gasp. This was Chaim's last gasp with Yoshio together with him. It was our last chance to avoid a korban, and unfortunately it came about. So again, as we say the Kinner, think about the loss of Yoshio, not just as an individual, but what that represented to Klal Yisrael as a whole.